Inspiring true story. Grandmother reveals a life-changing secret about her hidden husband. Millie stood by the kitchen counter, hands trembling as the sweet aroma of apple pie filled the air. Time was slipping away, and her heart raced with the weight of the truth she'd kept hidden for so long. In just a few hours, her 3 children would gather here to celebrate her 75th birthday, but a secret hovered between her and the joy of the occasion. It was a secret about their father, about a love she'd preserved amidst a storm of life's cruelties. How could she reveal that he was not just a man lost to them, but a hero, someone who had sacrificed for others during a crisis that no one but Millie knew about? The memories flooded her mind, vivid and raw, days spent alone, struggling to raise their kids after her husband vanished during the economic downturn, a ghost of the man he once was. Fiery arguments spun into the fabric of their lives as she instilled values of hard work and resilience in her children, often drawing from her own sheer determination. And every night, she whispered prayers to keep their family afloat. As she pieced together the moments in her heart, a twinge of fear settled in. What if they couldn't see their father the way she had found him? A neighbor's life had hung by a thread, and in that frantic moment, their father had acted, something so profound yet buried under the dust of silence. Would her children view it as a betrayal? A lie? Or worse, an apparition of the truth she had shielded them from all these years? Millie took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. There were calls to action her heart needed to make. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The door swung open, and her children poured in, laughter and hugs echoing through the modest kitchen. Their joy ignited little sparks of warmth within her. They were still oblivious, caught in the delight of memories. They reminisced about cheesy school plays and their stubborn family dog, Rufus. It made her smile, even as shadows of fear lurked behind her. But every laugh only deepened her apprehension, the truth a heavy weight resting on her chest. Millie felt the eyes of her children shining with excitement, and the fleeting moments of joy tangled with dread as she considered interrupting their bliss with her confession. The festive atmosphere felt like a stage where she stood on the brink of a life-altering revelation. As they settled around the dining table, she gathered her courage, her heart beating loud enough to drown out the festive chatter. "Kids, there's something about your father I need to tell you," her voice quivered, nerves straining against the tidal wave of emotions building within her, threatening to spill over. Just then, the doorbell rang, its chimes slicing through the air like a knife. Millie froze mid-sentence, her words caught in her throat. Who could possibly be at the door? Her children turned in unison, expressions shifting from excitement to concern. Each glance exchanged had the weight of 1,000 questions. Would the revelation of their heritage change their world? Would their father emerge as the man he truly was, or would the facade of memory shatter? Millie's mind raced as the doorbell rang again, insistent and sharp. Her heart pounded, each beat echoing her uncertainty. The air in the room thickened, a palpable tension replacing the joy that had filled it moments before. "Mom? Are you okay?" her daughter, Sarah, asked, concern clouding her bright eyes. Millie turned to face her children, desperation painting her features. I just need a moment," she stammered, rising from her chair, the legs scraping against the wooden floor. She could see the anxious glances exchanged between them, the unspoken question of whether to answer the door or give her the time she so desperately required. Who could that be? Her middle child, Jake, wondered aloud, his brow furrowing. "I'll go check," Austin, the youngest, said, already making his way to the door. Millie's instincts flared. She had to brace herself, to think of the right words. Just as he reached for the handle, she felt the walls of time pressing in on her, the past unfurling and closing in at the same time. "Wait!" she called out, hurried steps pulling her closer to intervene before the truth burst through the door uninvited. "Mom!" He turned back, confusion etching his features. "What is going on?" The door creaked open slowly, Austin peeking through. When he saw who stood outside, surprise replaced confusion. "Grandpa?" The words slipped from his lips like a prayer. Millie's heart raced. She had never expected him to come back, especially today of all days. She had imagined this moment, albeit in fleeting thoughts, but now reality confronted her with a whirlwind of feelings. The man who had disappeared from their lives, the figurative ghost she and her children had learned to live without, stood there, weary and weathered but undeniably alive. Surprise. He grinned, but it didn't reach his eyes, which carried a burden of sorrow and missed years. The room fell silent. Millie's heart ached as the memories of the love they once shared but had been irrevocably fractured flooded her mind. She remembered how he had left no goodbye, no answers. Just a departure that left her to pick up the pieces alone. She had wanted to believe it was for their protection, but now, standing here before him, all her anxieties clawed at her with renewed vigor. Her children were frozen in place, and she could see the storm of emotions brewing beneath the surface. They had grown up with fragments of their father's story, pieces edged in pain and absence. Now the full picture was shifting right in front of them, threatening to upend everything they thought they knew. Millie gathered her strength and stepped forward, her voice barely a whisper. "What are you doing here?" "I came to see you, Millie." "I've thought of nothing else for years," he sighed, regret simmering in his tone. He looked at his grandchildren, recognition swirling in his eyes, and a breath hitched in his throat. She wanted to tell them the truth, to finally lay bare the stories they'd spent years building among shadows, but now, with their father standing there, a part of her clung to the past, and the future threatened to unravel before her. "Mom, what is happening?" whispered Sarah, a look of bewilderment mixed with fear flickering across her face. Before Millie could answer, a wave of determination surged through her. "We need to talk." Her voice steadied, and a bitter sweetness filled the air. It hadn't just been her secret to share anymore. It belonged to all of them now. The kitchen, once vibrant with laughter and the scent of home, felt like a tightrope stretched over an abyss. With a glance at her children, she knew they were nearing the moment of truth, the moment that would redefine their family forever. What would they say to the man they thought was lost? Would they welcome him back, or would this moment fracture them even more? As she looked into her children's eyes, hope and fear danced together, blurring the lines of what was about to unfold. "Now, he's back," Millie thought, the gravity of her next words hanging thick in the air. The door had opened, and with it, all the possibilities of the truth. But would they find the strength together to embrace it? And just as she felt the weight of the moment settle, she asked herself one last question: what if this was the beginning of understanding, or simply the end of everything they once believed? The silence was heavy, a dense fog that enveloped them all. Millie's chest tightened as she looked from her children to the man who had once been the center of her world. She could see the flicker of recognition in their eyes. Her son Jake, wide-eyed and uncertain; Sarah, brow furrowed in confusion; little Austin, unaware yet of the complexity unfolding before him. They had been told stories, glimpses of a man who had vanished without a trace, and now here he was, flesh and blood, a once familiar stranger. "Grandpa?" Austin echoed again, his voice small, the innocence in his tone laced with wonder and disbelief. It struck Millie in her gut, a poignant reminder of what they had all missed. "Yeah, buddy," he replied, his voice trembling slightly as he knelt to meet the boy's gaze. "It's me." His attempt at warmth fell flat, a hollow sound echoing in the charged atmosphere of the kitchen. Millie took a steadying breath, pushing her fears aside. "We need to talk," she repeated, this time more firmly, drawing her children closer around her. The table, usually a gathering place for laughter and meals, now felt more like a round table for decisions that could change everything. "About what?" Jake's voice was cautious, and Millie could see him struggling to piece things together. "About who your grandfather is and why he left," she said, her heart pounding like a drum. Could she even begin to explain? The tangled web of love, loss, and betrayal was not easily untangled. "Mom, I don't understand," Sarah ventured, her voice a mix of hurt and curiosity. "Why would he just leave?" Millie's gaze flitted to her father, the man who caused so much pain, yet was now here, looking for absolution. "It's complicated," she murmured, then looked at her father. "You have to explain that." He nodded, taking a deep breath as if bracing himself for the weight of their expectations. He started, but the words caught in his throat. Just tell us the truth, Millie urged, breaking through the awkward silence. All of it. He shifted on his feet, guilt and sorrow etched across his face. I thought I was protecting you all, he finally managed, his voice choked with emotion. When I left, it was to keep you safe from things I couldn't explain. Safe from what? Sarah asked, her voice rising with frustration. From me, from my mistakes, he croaked, surrendering to the weight of his own confession. I made terrible choices that put this family in danger. I thought disappearing would be the best option. I thought time would heal, but it only created more distance. Millie could see the pain in her children's eyes as they took in his words. Each revelation was a dagger, puncturing the hope they had clung to over the years. Could they find a way to forgive this man whom they barely knew? Mom, Jake ventured, his small hand finding his sister's. Do we have to let him back in? Millie felt the fissures forming, uncertainty creeping through the cracks of their fragile family unity. That's up to all of us. We have to decide together what we want for our future. Her voice was steady, but inside she was a storm. What if their bond couldn't be repaired? Austin tugged at her skirt, looking intently at his mother. Do we want him to stay? This innocent question struck a chord deep within Millie. Was it possible to embrace the past and the future in one breath? Would they dare to rebuild? As each child looked to her, expecting answers, Millie realized the truth of their situation. This could be a moment of reckoning or a blessing in disguise. She glanced at the man who brought all this pain and confusion with him. One simple choice could either break them or bring them together anew. A choice she never thought she'd have to make again. Millie felt the air thicken again, as if the kitchen itself was holding its breath. Let us figure it out, she murmured, a flicker of hope igniting within her. Together. But would they all be able to face the past and take the first step towards a new beginning? Or was this only the start of a deeper unraveling? Millie felt her heart race as she met her children's expectant gazes. Uncertainty weighed heavily in the air, but a surge of determination pushed her forward. She had to lead this conversation, to navigate the turbulent waters of their emotions. Okay, she said, her voice just above a whisper. Let us take it one step at a time. Why did he really leave? Jake asked, his eyes darting between his mother and grandfather. His voice trembled slightly, torn between the boy who wanted a hero and the young man awakening to a painful truth. The old man shifted awkwardly, and for a moment, it seemed he would retreat back into the shadows of his past. But he straightened, meeting Jake's unwavering stare. I hurt your mother, he began, fidgeting with the rim of his glasses. I never meant to, but my choices. He hesitated, clearly wrestling with his own guilt. I was involved in things I shouldn't have been. And when I realized the danger it put you all in, running away seemed like the only answer. Running away, Sarah echoed bitterly, the edge in her voice cutting sharply through the fragile atmosphere. That was protection? Millie could see the grief etched into her daughter's features. Standing her ground, she replied, it was a misguided attempt, Sarah. But it broke us. Austin, who had been unusually quiet, tugged at his mother's sleeve once more. Can he fix it? He asked, his innocent face painting a portrait of hope tinged with uncertainty. Millie knelt down beside her youngest child, brushing back his hair. Sweetheart, it's not that simple. Healing takes time, and we all have to want it. The kitchen felt smaller with every passing second. Each person's breath hung in the air like heavy smoke, filled with memories that had never been shared. The scent of breakfast lingered, an odd contrast to the emotional unraveling taking place. What if we tried? Her father finally said, his voice steadier now, almost pleading. What if I turn things around? I'll do whatever it takes. Just like that? Jake countered, skepticism dripping from his voice. You expect us to just accept you back? After all this time? Millie stood up, the tension crackling around her like static electricity. And what do we expect ourselves? She asked softly, inviting a moment of silence, daring them to explore the depths of their emotions. Can we trust him? Sarah replied, her voice drawn tight. I don't know if I can. Austin believes in him, Millie replied, eyeing her son, who had an open heart, unencumbered by the history complicating their lives. But trust is built, not given. Maybe we could start slow, Millie suggested, her gaze shifting from child to child, assessing their reactions. Create new memories. Small steps. We can see how we feel. But what if he leaves again? Sarah's eyes were glassy, vulnerability spilling over. What if it all falls apart again? Life is about risks, the old man said, his voice crumbling slightly. I get it now, the things I took for granted. I'm not asking for forgiveness, but for a chance to be better. The family stood still, each one lost in their thoughts of hurt and hope. Millie felt the heaviness again, but alongside it, a flickering flame ignited within her. Let us take it one day at a time, she proposed, her heart swelling with the weight of responsibility and a hint of optimism. As they began to murmur among themselves, the tension still thick, Millie felt a wave of unity form, albeit fragile. They were at the edge of beginning something new. A new chapter that could lead to healing if they could overcome their hurt, but as the day unfolded, Millie couldn't shake the feeling that the real challenge lay ahead. Would they truly be able to forgive and trust? The future loomed uncertainly, ready to reveal its next twist. She glanced back at her father, their eyes meeting, each lost in a world of regret and hope. Could this once fractured family now stitch together the pieces of their lives? As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue through the kitchen window, Millie wondered if this was merely the first step in their journey, or if it would lead to deeper revelations they couldn't yet fathom. The morning sun draped itself lazily across the kitchen, casting a warm glow over Millie and her children. The air buzzed with a mix of hope and lingering doubt. Together, they had just begun to untangle a web of emotions that felt both daunting and essential. Millie busied herself with breakfast, her hands instinctively flipping pancakes, though her mind was still swirling. She caught glimpses of her children stealing glances at their grandfather, whose presence felt both foreign and strangely familiar. Despite the distance created by years of silence, she sensed a fragile connection forming, tentative yet promising. Can we talk about him? Jake broke the silence, his voice steady but laced with vulnerability. I mean, really talk. Not just how we used to before. This caught everyone off guard. Millie turned to him, a flicker of pride igniting her heart. Of course. What do you want to know? I don't get it. How can someone just leave? Was he scared? Or something else? Jake looked directly into his grandfather's eyes, his expression resolute. The old man trembled slightly, but he knew he owed his grandson an answer, one that hung between honesty and the weight of his shame. I was scared, Jake. But that fear isn't an excuse. I thought leaving would protect you all from my mistakes. But what I learned is that abandoning you was my biggest mistake. Jake nodded slowly but didn't seem satisfied. That doesn't explain how you could just walk away. What made you think that was okay? Silence filled the room as the questions hung heavy, demanding answers that felt uncomfortable yet necessary. Millie dared to glance at Sarah, who was quietly assessing her grandfather, her face a mask of contemplation. Austin believes in you, she whispered, her voice low but fierce. He's got so much faith. But that faith comes from innocence. We know better. Trust doesn't come easy, Millie added. You need to realize that this is about so much more than just wanting to be part of our lives again. It's about taking responsibility for the past. As the conversation unfolded, it became evident that each of them was grappling with their own version of forgiveness. The warmth of family began to clash with cold, hard truths. Can we ever be a family again? Sarah finally asked, her voice wavering. What if it's too late? Millie felt her heart clench at those words. The fear of what they could lose again threatened to overwhelm her, but she squeezed her eyes shut for a brief moment, drawing in a steadying breath. We can try, Sarah. That's all we can do. Just try. One day at a time, and if it doesn't work, we'll have to figure it out together. In that moment, the kitchen took on a life of its own, pulsing with collective resolve. Millie looked around at her children, their expressions painting a portrait of both hope and apprehension. Maybe we need to create new traditions, Austin suggested, his small voice breaking through the weight of the tension. Like family game night or movie marathons. Something to remind us we're still here, that we matter. The idea lit a spark in Millie. That's brilliant, Austin. It'll give us something to build on. A foundation. And we can weave in the stories of the past, so they don't linger unspoken. As plans began to unfold amidst laughter and memories shared, Millie felt a wash of warmth surge through her. For the first time in years, the air felt lighter. But still, she sensed an undercurrent of fear lurking beneath the surface of their renewed connection. Could these plans really mend what had been so deeply fractured? Would trust be enough to glue their lives back together? As night fell and the shadows of uncertainty crept in once again, Millie couldn't shake the feeling that there were still secrets lurking, waiting to be revealed. She glanced at her father, whose expression held layers of stories unsaid. What would happen if those secrets came to light? Would they be able to withstand another storm? The thought gnawed at her, stirring doubts she couldn't ignore. And with that, as fatigue began to settle in, she knew that the journey ahead would be both daunting and unpredictable. The question loomed like a specter in the darkness: were they ready for whatever came next? The following morning, Millie awoke to a soft light filtering through her curtains. It felt like a fresh start, but a knot in her stomach reminded her of the weight still pressing down on their family. The laughter from the previous night echoed softly in her mind, but shadows also danced around the corners of her thoughts. She couldn't shake the feeling that truths left unspoken could topple the fragile peace they had just forged. As she prepared breakfast, the smell of bacon sizzling filled the air. The children often emerged with groggy smiles and messy hair, and this morning was no exception. Millie watched as Jake helped Sarah set the table. They were already fitting into a routine that felt both comforting and strange. But somewhere in her heart, doubt lingered. The old man shuffled into the kitchen, his movements slow and deliberate. Millie noticed the way he hesitated, almost as if he were gathering his thoughts like a diver before plunging into murky waters. "I hope there's enough for everyone," he offered, his voice shaky but sincere. "Always is," Millie replied, attempting to infuse some levity into the moment. She didn't want tension today, wouldn't allow it. Not today. As breakfast unfolded, Jake's questions pierced the warm air again. "What happens next?" he asked, eyes bright with youthful curiosity, yet heavy with unspoken fears. Millie felt her heart contract. "We keep talking," she said cautiously. "That's essential. We create new stories, like Austin suggested. But that means facing the lingering past too." "I'm not sure if I'm ready to talk about everything," the old man interjected, voice low, yet firm. "There are things I've kept to myself, things I thought would protect you, but I'm realizing it just hurt." "What do you mean?" Sarah leaned forward, genuine concern etched on her face. "You can't just keep secrets. It's not fair." Millie remained quiet, letting the tension thicken in the air. She grasped the edge of the table, as if it might anchor her resolve. "I left because I thought it was best for everyone, but there are some things that if shared, could change how you see everything," he continued, his voice breaking slightly. "I'm scared it will hurt you even more." Jake frowned. "But if it's the truth, shouldn't we hear it? Isn't that the whole point of trying again?" The old man's eyes flickered, and Millie noticed how worn he looked, caught between his past and the uncertain bridge to the present. "There are choices I made that led me to leave. Choices I regret. If I share that, it could shatter any hope we have left." "What do you mean?" Austin piped up from the corner, his innocent eyes wide. "Sometimes, secrets can be good." Millie exhaled sharply, her heart pounding. "Sweetheart, some secrets are meant to be shared, but it's how and when we choose to unveil them that matters." The room fell still, silence reigning where laughter once filled the air. Millie could feel the weight of speculation pulling on her thoughts. Would revealing these secrets truly help? Or would it complicate everything they'd just begun to rebuild? "Well, what if we went on a family outing today?" Jake suggested, trying to shift the mood. We could go to the lake or the park. Sometimes fresh air helps clear the head. Millie smiled at the suggestion, grateful for Jake's attempt to breathe light into the heaviness. That sounds wonderful. Just the four of us with him, she gestured toward her father, anxiety nestled in her chest. A chance to make new memories. The old man nodded slowly, a flicker of hope igniting in his eyes. I'd do like that. Thank you for letting me be a part of it. As they wrapped breakfast, excitement began to bubble in the air, but uncertainty hovered like a cloud. Millie stole glances at her father, every fiber of her being preparing for what it might mean if they all confronted the hidden truths lurking in their past. Would a day at the lake wash away the weight of those unspoken words? Or would it culminate in a storm, leaving them exposed and raw? The questions churned in her mind as they piled into the car, her heart racing at what the day might reveal. As they sped down the road, the sun shining brightly, one thing was for certain, they were on the brink of something monumental. Would they emerge stronger or be pushed back into silence? Only time would tell. The scent of fresh air filled the car as they drove, the sun splashing warm rays through the windows. Laughter bubbled up between the children, their chatter filling the spaces created by the lingering tension. Millie felt her shoulders ease slightly, but the knot never fully unraveled. She glanced at her father, who was looking out the window, the landscape passing like memories he couldn't quite grasp. Where are we headed exactly? The old man asked, breaking the momentary silence. To the lake, Millie replied, her voice steady despite the uncertainty creeping back in. It's peaceful there. Just a nice spot for us to relax, to breathe. As the car pulled into the parking lot, small waves glimmered playfully on the water's surface, reflecting the sky like a mirror. Millie watched her children spill out of the car, their innocence clashing beautifully with the weight of the day ahead. She felt a shift inside her, a flicker of hope that today could be the turning point. They found a spot under the shade of a large tree. Laughter floated above them as Jake and Sarah chased one another along the shore, their giggles bursting forth like bubbles breaking the surface of the water. Austin, still slightly apprehensive, stayed close to Millie, casting curious glances toward his grandfather. "Isn't it lovely?" Millie said, trying to distract herself. She looked toward the old man, whose gaze was fixed on the kids. "It's great to see them this way." Yes, it is," he replied softly, a smile briefly touching his lips. But Millie could see the shadows creeping back into his eyes. The moment was delicate, teetering on the edge of something she couldn't yet define. "Why don't you join them?" she suggested, her voice laced with warmth. "I can keep an eye on Austin." "I'd rather not get too close just yet," he admitted, his voice thick. "I don't want to disturb their happiness." Millie nodded, understanding how hard it was for him to take that step. She watched the children frolic, their laughter cutting through the stillness like a song, and felt a pang of longing. She could recall her own carefree days, feelings of joy and camaraderie with family. The past felt so far away yet constantly haunted by what remained unsaid. "Grandpa!" Jake called, sprinting toward them with sand scattered across his face. "Come over. You have to see this. The water feels amazing." The old man hesitated, fear replacing hope with every moment that passed. Millie sensed this was a pivotal opportunity, a moment where they could either bind their family closer or let feelings fester. But how could she encourage her father to open up? As they finally settled on the sand, the atmosphere buzzed with potential. You can tell us anything," Millie said, her voice gentle yet firm. "We're in this together, remember?" He looked at her, his eyes glistening with unshed tears, a mixture of shame and fear reflected back at her. "I'm not sure how to explain everything," he whispered. "Start from where you feel comfortable," Sarah chimed in, her youthful determination shining through. "Just let it out." In that quiet moment, as nature surrounded them, Millie could feel something within her father shift. Maybe today would be the day? Maybe they would finally face the storm waiting on the horizon, but what if his words brought more chaos? What if they fractured the tender peace they'd been nurturing? Millie's heart raced as her father took a deep breath, the silence stretching just long enough for her to hold her breath. Would he share what he'd kept so tightly wrapped away? Would it change everything? And then, with all the weight of 1,000 secrets, he finally began to speak. The old man's voice trembled as if the words were caught in his throat. "It's been so long since I've let anyone in," he started, his gaze shifting to the ground. "I thought I could carry this weight alone." Millie's heart sank. She offered a nod, encouraging him without pressing too hard. The laughter of her children wove around them, a soothing backdrop, but she couldn't shake the sense of urgency. "When your mother, she was everything to me. When I lost her, it felt like the light went out of my life." His voice cracked, deep lines etched more sharply on his worn face. "I didn't just lose my wife. I lost my reason. So, I shut everything away." Millie's chest ached at the pain woven through his words. "You don't have to carry it alone anymore, Dad," she said softly, her own voice thickening with emotion. "We're here. We can help you with the memories. We can carry them together." He glanced back at his grandchildren, a bittersweet smile appearing, but it was shadowed by grief. "I never wanted to burden you. I thought if I just kept my head down and moved through life, things would get easier." "Building walls doesn't help," she replied gently. The weight of his sorrow hung between them like fog, thick and unyielding. She was desperate for him to understand that vulnerability could lead to healing. Austin, sensing the heaviness in the air, moved closer to his mother. "Grandpa?" the boy asked, his voice fragile. "Do you miss Grandma?" The question hit the old man like a splash of cold water. He nodded slowly, tears pooling in his eyes. "Every single day. But I didn't know how to share that with anyone. I thought I'd just fade away." "Maybe it's not too late to find your way back," Sarah chimed in, her youthful optimism glimmering. "You could join us. We could make new memories, ones that would make Grandma smile." Millie could see the internal battle waging in her father's heart. The idea of opening up, of reconnecting, frightened him, yet the ache of loneliness tugged just as strongly. "Memories don't have to hurt," Millie said softly. "They can be a way to keep her alive in the laughter and love we share. Don't you want that for your grandchildren?" He wiped at the tears that finally spilled over, his expression shifting. "I do. I just don't know if I'm strong enough." "Strength isn't about holding everything in. Sometimes it's in letting go," Millie replied, her heart swelling with hope. "It's in trusting us to catch you if you fall." The gentle sound of the water lapping at the shore filled the silence, and for a moment, the chaos of their emotions settled. He took a deep breath, steadying himself, as he looked at his kids playing. Their joy was infectious, a glowing reminder that life still had a pulse. "Maybe that's the truth I've been afraid to say," he uttered, almost to himself. "Maybe life can still bring joy, even with so much taken away." Millie felt a warmth spread through her, a flicker of hope igniting within his struggle. She squeezed his hand, encouraging him to take the leap. "Let us start now," she said, the words carrying weight, resonating deeply. "What's your favorite memory of Mom? Tell us, Dad. Let us share it together." As he looked at his family, the dam of silence that had held him captive for years began to crack. There, in the calm embrace of the lake, with echoes of their children's laughter surrounding them, he took another deep breath. It was now or never, but just as he began to form the words, the sound of a distant siren pierced through the peaceful atmosphere, jolting everyone to attention and shattering the moment. Millie's heart raced anew, feeling a gathering storm of uncertainty close in. What would that siren mean for them? Would it pull him back into his shell, or would it push him to finally confront his past? The siren wailed in the distance, echoing across the tranquil waters, pulling Millie and her father from their fragile moment of connection. It felt like someone had turned up the volume on a dark memory that crept close, lurking just outside their renewed hope. The laughter of her children twisted into a haunting hush, underscoring the gravity of the moment. "What is going on?" Austin asked, his small brow furrowed in confusion, innocence clashing with the weight of the unexpected sound. "Just a fire truck, honey," Millie replied, but even she could hear the quiver in her voice. She could see her father's expression tighten like a clenched fist, a storm brewing behind his weary eyes. I need to check, he finally said, the weight of resignation draping over his shoulders. It was as if the siren had siphoned away the air around him. The boys ran off, breaking the silence, oblivious to the tension hanging in the air. Millie was torn. She wanted to let him go, to have the space to unravel within his thoughts, but she also saw this as a fragile opening. Dad, Millie called gently, her voice laced with urgency, maybe we can face this together. He hesitated, eyes drifting to where the sound had come from. What if it's bad news? What if it pulls me back into that darkness? Then we'll face it together. No more shadows. He swallowed hard, and for a fleeting moment, vulnerability flared in his blue eyes, flickering like the dying embers of a fire desperate for a soft breeze. Finally, he exhaled deeply, drawing in courage from the depths of his heart. Okay, he whispered. Let's see what it is. As they walked toward the road, anxiety clawed at Millie. The distance between the peaceful lake and that distant wail felt like an abyss. She glanced back at her children, their laughter echoing like a sweet memory and, at once, the anchor that held them together. As they reached the street, the fire truck was parked at a nearby house, a neighbor's home. Millie let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. A part of her wished for a clearer path that would direct them back to the warmth of the lake, away from the sharp edges of uncertainty. But they stood there, watching the firefighters work swiftly, their movements precise and practiced. What do we do now? Her father asked quietly, his eyes moving over the scene, scanning for whatever might trigger a flood of memories he preferred not to revisit. Maybe we just keep talking? Millie offered, fighting the urge to retreat into silence like he had for so long. You said you wanted to share a memory? He faltered, glancing away, then back to her. I worry I won't honor her right. I won't remember it as perfectly as it deserves. Millie moved closer, her hand brushing against his. Memories don't have to be perfect, Dad. What matters is how they made you feel. How they still make you feel. He nodded slowly. As they found a spot to sit, his body finally relaxing, the cacophony of sirens faded into the background, leaving a fragile silence in its wake. Millie wanted to push forward, to pull him into the light completely, but she sensed his hesitation. What was her laugh like? Millie asked gently, hoping to spark something warm. The old man leaned back, closing his eyes as a smile began to form. It had a way of lighting up a room no matter how dim the day was. Tell me more, she urged, sensing that the barriers were beginning to shift. But just as he opened his mouth to share more, another alarm blared. This time, it brought not just a siren's edge, but a vision of flashing lights sweeping the horizon. Millie felt panic rising again, desperately striving to keep the moment alive. Would this disruption shatter their connection, or was it a signal for transformation? Would he finally confront his past or allow the noise to drown him out once more? As the distant siren faded, it was as though the silence around them took a deep, collective breath. Millie and her father sat together, poised on the precipice of an emotional breakthrough. She looked at him and saw the battle etched into his features, an internal conflict of sorrow and hope. Tell me about the time you took us to the fair, Millie urged, wanting him to reconnect with their shared past. Remember how we rode that Ferris wheel? A shadow of a smile flickered across his face. You were so scared, you clung to me the whole way up, he chuckled, his voice shaky with nostalgia. And then you made me ride it again. She laughed, feeling warmth spread through her. And this time, you promised I'd feel brave. His eyes softened, and she noticed the corners of his mouth lift just a bit higher. You did feel brave, and then you wanted to ride every ride in sight, he said, his voice thick with emotion. That fair was magic, she replied, a spark of light flaring in the depths of her heart. We were so happy. Those were good days, he murmured, as if he could almost feel the thrill again. The children scampered back from the splashes near the shoreline, their laughter entwined with the sound of the waves. Austin's face lit up, his innocence shining through as he shouted, Grandpa. Want to join us? Millie's father hesitated, glancing between his grandchildren and the ground. I don't know if I'll fit in with all the fun. His eyes shimmered with the threat of unshed tears. Life isn't about fitting in, Millie replied gently. It's about leaning in. Embracing what we have, even if it feels daunting. Come on, let us make a new memory. With tentative steps, he rose, finally finding the courage to retrieve the joy that had evaded him for so long. Their eyes locked, and Millie smiled at her father, hoping to convey the unwavering belief that this moment could be a turning point. As they approached the giggling kids, he inhaled deeply, letting the air fill his lungs with new possibility. The grandkids rushed over, each needing a hand to go back to the water. Can you lift me, Grandpa? Austin pleaded, his trust unconditional. With a soft grin creeping in, her father crouched down, and for the first time in years, he played the role of a proud grandfather. He scooped Austin up as Jake and Sarah cheered excitedly. Millie's heart soared, watching the light return to his demeanor. The laughter that had echoed moments ago filled the air again, punctuated by splashes and squeals. Let us race to the deeper part, shouted Jake, leading the charge. Millie watched her children run, filled with joy, dragging their grandfather behind, who stumbled at first but soon solidified his footing, laughter bubbling up from within him, each step marking progress, each splash scratching away at the pains of the past. Millie's heart grew full as she captured the scene, the sweet image of her reunited family at the shores of the lake, familiar warmth intermingled with possibilities of healing. They were alive and moving together through currents of emotion and forgiveness. As they settled in for ice cream under the shade of a nearby tree, Millie gathered her courage to speak once more. Dad, this is where you belong. We all need you here. He glanced at her, his eyes brimming with emotion. I forgot how good it felt to have you all around me, he admitted, penitent but relieved. I let my fears steal that away from you, from me. That's in the past now, she reassured him. You have us, and together we can create better tomorrows. His expression softened as he looked at his grandchildren, who were blissfully unaware of the deeper struggles surrounding them. Will you forgive me? He asked, desperation and hope merged into a single plea. Let us work towards that, she replied, taking his hand. One step at a time. And just like that, hope flickered anew. With every bite of ice cream, with every laugh shared, they built the path toward rebuilding their family. Millie realized that forgiveness isn't a fixed point, it's a journey, a continuous wave, just like the lapping waters before them. Together, she whispered to herself, feeling tears of joy prick at her eyes. Her children and their grandfather, all hopeful, all learning to trust again. This was more than she ever imagined. It was a bond that could triumph over turmoil. As the sun dipped lower on the horizon, casting a golden hue over the lake, Millie knew that whatever storms lay ahead, they would face them side by side. Today marked the beginning of something beautiful, something transformative. Now more than ever, this family could navigate the waves, together, and you, dear readers, you need to subscribe now to this channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like because your support feeds the algorithm and takes us further. Comment down below your reactions and feelings about this heartfelt ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this incredible transformation. Let's keep this journey alive together.